prefer him not to do that.
Wait, you would? I thought you were human. Are you Pinocchio?
God, he knows.
Is that the title of the podcast? Lucas is Pinocchio?
I mean, it could be. It could also
Pinocchio.
Because you said I would, so I would.
It's because
But why do I have to be
Pinocchio is made out
Pinocchio?
of
Why
wood.
can't it be any other?
Because we like to make you
object made out of
feel.
wood?
It's like
Because those aren't also people.
we like to make you feel bad about your normal body. By the way, salute to Ben being here.
Salud. Good drink, Lucas.
Hold on, I got this.
Not bad. Although it was kind of just a clusterfuck. So.
Did it curdle in your mouth this time?
No, it did not. Lucky man I am. Alright. So, new episode. And we've got a guest host. We've got our roommate Ben.
Hello, I am Ben.
As
That's Ben, by the way.
we've got Lucas here.
That's Ben, by the way.
And myself, Alec. I really like the way that you spoke last time where it's like, welcome to Casual Experts.
Welcome to Casual Experts.
My
My name's Ben, and I'm your casual expert.
What a fucking
My
casual.
co-hosts are...
I tried to complete the thought last Alec.
And...
I guess Alec again.
Tibbers.
I tried to complete this thought
Have
before.
you seen my bear Tibbers?
You sounded like an unenthused theme park attendant who was just like, welcome to the wonderful world of casual experts. I am your casual expert, Ben. Look at all this.
Look at all these casual experts we have here.
3. 3 is the number you shall count to.
No, Paul was there last time, too.
No, he laughed at us.
Okay, guys, I like how the title of the video says featuring Ben and Vindios, but then you say Paul in the podcast, like, immediately.
That was the point.
Okay.
See, I'm not the one who...
But...
He had
Okay.
complete control over naming.
That was the point of it.
Okay.
That's why I did that.
Alright,
Okay.
I think...
I appreciate that.
I think we've got enough in open here. Let's talk about why we're here today. Tempo in games. Fun topic.
Yes.
Now, we get to start with the literal definition of tempo.
I mean...
I'm pretty sure most people understand it. It's basically just speed, or it's just the rate at which the patterns go in music. And
yeah,
it's a good
it comes from
application.
music, and it's like how quickly the beat or like
Beats per
notes
minute.
come. But in games, it is slightly different.
Basically the same idea, but just a little bit more applicable. It's just how fast the game is going, how fast it's progressing to endgame. And we basically are just going to run through the different examples in games just so it's easier to kind of get a handle on what it's like in games, because we were talking about in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a weird tempo. It's almost no tempo except like balls to the wall speed, because you have to outrace someone who's trying to also go balls to the wall.
Yeah, and you get a lot of combo decks, which, like he said, is balls to walls, but as in every game, there's a tempo, whether it is extremely fast or slow. So if we look at something like Magic, generally it's usually a bit slower because you have to rely on mana, and that limits...
There's checks and balances.
Depending on the formats.
Yes, depending on the
will,
formats.
Like, the larger the card pool, typically the faster the tempo of the format is. And the, like, closer you get to standard, the slower the games go.
So, why don't we start with Magic, because that's something that we're most familiar with. I'm not sure what decks you had written down. I know, in my case, the one I know the best is Delver deck.
Well, in Magic, tempo typically is determined by the amount of resources you have on board, be it lands, stats in play on your creatures, or combo pieces and such. And how those compare to your opponent's board state and all of that, and it dictates the pace of the game.
Yep. Easiest way of looking at that is clocks are basically how fast you think you can kill your opponent versus how fast they can kill you. That's an easy way to keep an eye on what the tempo is.
Like, if the board state does not change in any way, how quickly would your opponent be dead? And how quickly would you be dead?
And it's very important when looking at tempo that it's only the board state. Card advantage is not considered in tempo.
Right.
Yep.
So generally, card advantage, if you have a card advantage deck, that extends later, generally, and you will have the better deck if you're not a tempo deck.
Usually, you gain card advantage by sacrificing tempo. Like, Divination is a magic card, 2 and a blue, for a sorcery to draw 2 cards. You're not affecting the board state in any way, you're not affecting the pace of the game, but you're gaining card advantage. You're making a tempo negative play to gain an advantage in a different way. But the classic tempo deck in Magic would be a Delver deck, which... Does one of you want to tell us what Delver of Secrets is?
Delver of Secrets. He is a fun guy. He's a 1-drop, meaning you can make him as a turn 1 play. Oh, don't you give me those air quotes, you son of a bitch.
Okay, finish the description of the card.
So, he is a 1-drop. You get to put him down turn 1 if you have him in hand ready to go. The basic idea is if your deck is built around it, you're going to try to reveal a card from the top of your library that meets his condition. He flips into a creature that's a 3 in the air, so he's evasive.
It's a 3/2.
3/2. He's a good beat stick in the air. So he's going to be your main aggressor, and you build around that. So you have him as your main creature that's going to be getting you there. You have a bunch of cards that support that, either be it cantrips, so cards that will count towards flipping him and just replace themselves, or just cards that would keep your opponent in check. And those will naturally help you to flip him, get the advantage in the clock, and just keep control of the board so that you can actually make sure that you're hitting them down and keeping control over how fast the game is going.
I have a couple points I want to make. Alec made the statement that he is a fungi. Delver of Secrets is not a fungus. It is a human wizard and flips into an insect.
Insect aberration, I believe.
Insectoid.
Insectoid.
Yes, close enough.
I mean, it flips into consuming aberration.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
But no.
No. We're good at this.
No, consuming aberration is a
different
very
card.
different card. Abhorrent aberration? I don't know.
Spooky person, bug
Spooky
thing,
insect man.
who's flying.
I think I prefer
Yes.
that to his actual...
But
Well,
the concept behind a Delver deck is to deploy a threat and then protect it until it wins you the game. So typically, in Legacy, the format where Delver is most prevalent, they are some of the faster decks in the format. A similar deck to Delver is Infect, which is based around the mechanic poison counters, which if a player accrues 10 poison counters in a game, they lose. So they play small creatures that have Infect, which when they deal damage, they deal it in the form of poison counters to opponents. And they basically play counter spells to protect their threats, and then pump spells, which let you deal the damage much faster. They augment the power and toughness of your creature to either protect them from removal or to end the game.
And that's where our decks will differ. Like, yours is completely based on the creatures being able to start the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Mine I can switch into burn because my damage is the same, but you have a smaller number to hit. I have to hit 20 to kill him dead. You only have to hit 10, but you have to protect a creature, whereas I can just hit him in the face.
Right.
But when Delver switches to the burn style, they lose their tempo.
They
They lose the board state, generally.
they lose stats on board, but they're still like
Moving towards the end goal.
They're accelerating the game to its endpoint through burn spells, much like Lucas's favorite Legacy deck.
But when he gets low quite frequently.
I play Burn in Legacy, which you play small efficient creatures and punch face, and you play Lightning Bolt, which is a 3 damage spell
For 1 mana.
for 1 mana.
Very efficient.
Very efficient. In multiple forms. What is there, 12?
16 bolts.
16 bolts. Bolt is a term. The term displaced for all the spells that do 3 damage for 1 mana.
Because many of them have the word bolt in their name.
Yes.
Bolt colloquially means
3 damage burn spell for 1.
3 damage for 1 mana on a spell.
Yeah.
But yeah, changing tempo, or you're in the Delver deck. I want to go back to that. When you switch off of the board state game, say your threat gets removed and you move into the burn state, you are changing tempo quite a bit though. Okay. Like it's a big change.
Yeah. Best example, Miracles, which is a very good foil to my deck. They will grind out the game. They'll remove my threats when they need to, and then I have to try and beat their setup, which is very hard. So I have to usually switch from just efficient creatures to just killing them before they get their engine going, because I can't beat it.
Control decks in general are very low tempo, slow decks that are valuing card advantage much more than tempo. They will sacrifice their board state to gain advantage in different areas and try to push the game as long as they can, such as one of my favorite decks, Standstill, which tries to draw the game into a standstill.
Take your time.
The flavor text of the namesake, Standstill.
It's so good.
It's a terrible deck.
No, I mean the flavor text.
Flavor text is fantastic. One of the best in the business. And the last legacy deck, Magic deck that we have on the list to talk about is Grixis Control.
Oh god.
Which is quite similar. It is a control deck, so it has very low tempo, but it also has a similar game plan to Delver in that it can switch to a more aggressive line of play where it points burn spells at its opponent to finish the game should there be a better grindy deck to...
Yeah, they basically... The card that makes more of a difference in that deck, instead of it being Delver, is mainly the Pyromancer, where it gets to just turn all the control cards into...
They don't typically play Pyromancer anymore.
Angler.
Their threats are Gurmag Angler, which, for all intents and purposes, is a 1 mana 5/5. Very large amount of stats for low amount of resources. Snapcaster Mage, and Lightning Bolt, Kolaghan's Command.
Oh god, Kolaghan's.
Basically their ways. Their typical win conditions are Jace the Mind Sculptor and Liliana the Last Hope. But they will also grind the game out to win with their...
That is a miserable matchup. If you can't kill him quick.
I love that deck so much. Like, that deck stands for what I like in Magic, but it's also insanely expensive. And I cannot afford to play it.
Just play Burn.
I will play my Infect, thank you.
You can knock someone out of a top 16 and feel great.
You
or
can.
The top 8.
Yeah, it was the top 8 of the Frozen Tundra Legacy Championship.
I wasn't going anywhere, so I decided to play Burn for the last game. Knock someone out of top 8, felt great.
You know what doesn't feel great? Going to a competition where there's tons of optimal decks that you can play against, and then you don't get any of them.
A third of the field was good matchups. Like, a third of the field was all on one singular deck that was a very good matchup for Lucas. And he just never saw a single one of them.
They were decks that were killing themselves for him. And he couldn't.
I was really sad. On the bright side, Ben won the tournament. So.
I was playing one of those decks too, and I got beat out by goddamn Miracle Engines. It's
Miracle.
I died to Storm.
Oh no.
Hey, Storm tempo. Turn 1. Let's go.
Feels bad.
Storm is very weird on tempo because they play literally they play one creature in the sideboard, but it's a 0/1. So, like,
yeah,
they're literally 0 creature tempo, but they can either win on their first turn or grind the game out as long as they need to get to the optimal hand to go off and win.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's Tempo and Magic for the most part.
Alright, do we want to go with Yu-Gi-Oh or Hearthstone first? Because either way, one of us is basically going to get knocked out of the conversation for a bit.
Go with Yu-Gi-Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Alright, so, I've mentioned this deck before. It's one of my pet decks. It is very close to a Delver deck, honestly, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Boojins.
What are Boojins?
So Boojins are creatures where you basically have animals that represent the weapons, and they're basically souls that possess the weapons, and then you have suits of armor that are the humanoid characters. You play the humanoid characters, you load the animals in grave, and you use the animals when you need them to slow the game down until you keep building up massive board states to punch people with. Basic game plan: play a couple of those suits of armors, load your grave up with something that'll either prevent damage or just counter an effect, and then you go ahead and just hit face. And half the time you can go out with a combo finish where you just double the attack and just kill someone in one swing, or you just grind it out. It's very similar. It's the closest thing I can think of.
That sounds a lot like Infect.
Basically, you just go ahead and deploy a couple of things, slow the game down, and then when you need to, you can just end in one go. You can go Noble Beats, you can go Incremental Infect, you can just slowly... Noble Beats
Noble Beats! Noble
Beats.
Hierarch, for those listening, is a 1 green for a 0/1 that can tap for a blue, a white, or a green mana, and also has the keyword Exalted.
Which, if a creature attacks alone, it gets a +1/+1 bonus for each Exalted trigger.
Until end of turn. And this is one of the key creatures in the Infect deck, as you frequently have one creature attacking alone, and it will pump your guy up to get in for more damage without costing you any more resources. And there are times when you have no Infect creature and you must beat down your opponent
With a
1 or
0/1.
2 damage at a time with your Noble Hierarch.
The 0/1 that is punching face.
Fun fact, I killed one of my opponents at the tournament that Lucas was talking about by dealing 8 damage with a Noble Hierarch in 1 turn.
Wasn't that 9? Because it was
I believe
double Invigorate, right?
Either way,
Probably.
it's a fantastic thing. To see Noble Hierarchy.
I did a lot of damage with that Noble.
For those of you who don't know, Invigorate is almost always cast as your opponent gains 3 life, give target creature +4/+4.
Which Infect does not care about your opponent gaining life because it kills you with Infect counters.
But, so if it gave the opponent 4 life, it'd be even damage-wise, but it doesn't.
No,
What do you mean
it's
no?
3 life, remember?
I said,
He's saying
I said
if it would gain, if it gave your opponent 4 life, it would be neutral.
But since it doesn't, technically you get that extra +1 damage on your opponent. When you stack 2 of them, you get +2 damage, and that can close out games. Surprisingly, you wouldn't think that'd come in often, but
It itself frequently does not come in often, but paired with Berserk, this is just becoming an Infect cast.
Yeah.
But paired
Well, that's what
with
we get.
Berserk,
We brought you in, we get Infect.
of course. But paired with Berserk, which is 1 green mana for an instant spell that the relevant text is the creature that you target with it gets +X/+0, where X is its power. So the normal combo is Invigorate your guy to give it +4/+4. It's now a 5/5. And then Berserk it becomes a 10/10. And then that is typically lethal. But as Lucas was saying, normally it would give you +1 point. An Invigorate would give you +1 point of damage. Well, if you also cast Berserk, that becomes a +5 because it's getting the 4, and then because you're netting 1 damage for the Invigorate, and then the Berserk gives you another 4 on top of that.
Yep.
Alright. We'll just say one more thing then about Yu-Gi-Oh! We're gonna go back with one more thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Before we switch over to Hearthstone then. Yu-Gi-Oh! The best way of telling what's a tempo deck, does it seem like it's a fair deck? Do you think it's doing fair things in exchange for what it's doing? I'm one for wanting your things with my things, and that's all. I'm not comboing. I'm not outright just doing a bunch of stuff, taking... Like, another one that doesn't seem like it, but is a tempo deck, is the other deck I play, Ritual Beast. Again, you do fair things for the most part. You go ahead and just use effects, and it basically becomes a one-for-one. You just do a couple of things, punch with one creature at a time, hold up defenses. But that's usually how it goes. If it seems like it's a fair deck, it's probably a tempo deck, because it's probably trying to slow the game and grind it. Whereas most of the other parts of the formats, they'll say, oh, that seems kind of broken. How is this a thing? That's probably not a tempo deck. That's probably something that's aggro or combo.
I know very little about Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I stopped playing like 10 years ago.
After like the fourth
But
expansion?
I know one of Lucas's favorite decks is Skull Servants.
It is.
How would you describe that in like on the rate of tempo? Like, is it a fast? Is it slow? Is it more of a mid-range?
It's kind of more of a mid-range.
It's
because
it feels like mid-range aggro basically.
I'd agree more towards that. So the point of Skull Servants, I don't believe I discussed this before, is you load the grave up with cards that, when they're in the grave, are considered Skull Servant. You bring out your King of Skull Servants, which has the text, gains 1,000 attack for every Skull Servant you have in your graveyard, and then you beat face with it. So it's more aggro in that sense, but also the fact that a lot of the time you are playing defense to match your opponent's tempo, even if they're a combo deck. You're playing your Skull Servant to be just barely bigger than them so you can match their tempo.
Dark Grepher would be an example of when you're not going completely aggro. Play that card to get the engine going, and it stays up as a blocker. It stays up as lines of defense, but it's very important in the deck.
It is very important. Dark Grepher is a 4-star. I believe it's 1,700 attack. I don't recall the defense. You can activate its ability by ditching one dark monster as the cost, and then if it resolves, you can send a dark monster from your deck to the graveyard.
So basically, you throw, hopefully, 2 white princes to load up your grave with 6 cards that are going to be pumping up your king. But it's a very important card in the deck because of that, but it's not getting you to your endgame necessarily in one go. It's building up momentum, and it's just keeping things from just dropping you dead on their turn.
Yeah. It's preventing you from just immediately dying. Which is important in games. Fun fact.
Happens. Yu-Gi-Oh's weird. It either happens or it turns into an absolute grind fest.
I'd say more times than not it just happens. Someone gets it. More times than not in Yu-Gi-Oh! Someone combos off, because almost every deck. I keep saying this because I've played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a lot.
Before links were a thing and they had to slow down the game using a new mechanic, it got real fast real quick.
Yeah. But anyways, let's move on to Hearthstone, shall we?
We get to alienate Alec.
I'm going to start looking away at the monitor.
But in Hearthstone, tempo is defined by the stats that you have on the board. And can also be described as the pace that you are working towards your win condition.
I'm just gonna grab another shot while you guys talk about Hearthstone.
Frequent. Apparently, we are too boring for Alec.
No, it'll just help that I'm drunk.
But like the high tempo decks in Hearthstone are typically the aggro decks, as like fast decks are high tempo, very redundant.
Mm-hmm.
But Tempo Mage is one of the fastest decks. Do you want to describe what Tempo Mage is?
No, I don't remember. It's been a while since I've gone up against Tempo Mage. I don't actually remember.
Tempo Mage, the like ideal play is turn 1 Mana Worm.
Oh,
which is a
yeah.
creature that gets bigger the more spells you play. And
1 mana 1/3s, folks. They're real good in Hearthstone.
yeah, surprisingly, like coming from Magic, that kind of surprises me. Although a 1/3 would be very good in Magic, stat differences between Magic and Hearthstone are very,
Interesting.
very
I mean,
apparent.
I think it's a lot different because in Hearthstone you have the given mana and you're guaranteed, compared to in Magic you have to have your lands to make certain things, and you only reach a certain... Like, on average in Magic you only reach a certain amount of lands per your deck. Like, there's the variance, but on average you're going to get, like, in some decks, 3-4 lands.
Yeah, I have a point to make about that, but I forgot what I was going to say.
You're talking about Tempo Mage.
And about given resources?
The different... it was very apparent, like, playing Arena in Hearthstone when I first was getting back into it since the beta, because I played a little bit in the beta and then I quit. But coming from a Magic the Gathering mindset, the stat lines in Hearthstone are evaluated much differently because damage is permanent on the creatures. I mean, you can heal them, but they don't automatically heal every turn like they do in Magic. So larger toughness, defense, health. Larger health matters much more in Hearthstone. Like, a 1 mana 1/3 is so much better than a 1 mana 2/2, I think, in Hearthstone. And I would rather play a 3/5 than... I don't know.
5/3?
Yeah. A 3/5 is much better than a 5/3 in Hearthstone. Because
so weird.
it allows you to trade with more value in mind.
And in general, trading... Well, trading is part of your tempo. And
Yeah.
it's very important. In Hearthstone, that is one of the most important things you do. Because there's not a lot of combo decks. There's a few.
Board control matters much more in Hearthstone than Magic.
Yeah.
I forgot. In Hearthstone, do you choose what you're attacking?
Yes.
Yes.
Then there's a minimum certain cards that you have to attack them first
Yes.
before anything
If they
else?
have what's called taunt, you have to kill that minion first before you can attack anything else that does not have taunt.
That's one of the reasons why... I think that's one of the reasons why I've always felt weird about the game, is because it's not really fully decided on Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic in terms of how combat feels. At least I can't draw a clear line between them.
Yeah,
It's a
they
weird-
all have different. So in Hearthstone, you have to attack taunt minions, then you get to choose. In Magic, you can only attack the player or Planeswalker, I guess. Technically, kind of player-ish. And then in Yu-Gi-Oh, you have to kill all the creatures, and then you can attack the player.
Yep, and because of that, you get choice, which it shapes the format. It shapes the game. It's weird.
There's a lot of like theory behind behind card games in particular, but one thing that was it was told to me from like a YouTube video or something, but in Hearthstone, because you decide what you're attacking, the advantage is towards the more aggressive player.
Mm-hmm.
So in Hearthstone, typically aggressive decks are better than the control decks, unless cards are more powerful in one direction than the other. Whereas in Magic, you control how to block. Like, blocks are decided by the defending player, not the attacking player. So it encourages a longer, slower tempo game.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the decks that we were discussing. Tempo Mage plays high statted for their cost creatures and lots of direct damage. I don't remember the name of...
Fireball.
Fireball is a very good 4 mana, deal 6.
To any target.
Yes.
Does it play Pyroblast?
No,
One
not
Pyroblast?
usually. I don't believe... Not anymore.
Okay.
But they very much sacrificed the long game by playing Alineth,
Oh, yes.
which is a 6 mana 0/3 weapon. Low tempo, doesn't affect the board at all when you play it, but at the end of your turn you draw 3 cards.
Okay, that justifies the mana.
The thing in Hearthstone, though, is you can only have a maximum of 10 cards in your hand. It's not you draw 10 cards, discard the cards you don't want at the end of your turn, like you do in Magic. It's once you draw 10, the next card you would draw gets destroyed.
Basically exit.
Yeah.
There is no... It doesn't go into the death pool.
So you don't get to profit off of having more card selection by drawing a bunch and then getting rid of the
Unless
slide.
you can dump your hand.
Yes.
You have to be able to play the cards from your hand.
Which is what Tempo Mage does very well.
Plays very small creatures. The curve tops out at 6. But other than that, there's no 5-drops I can think of. Their biggest creature is a 4-mana 4/3 that has +2 spell damage. So any spell that you have that would deal damage deals 2 more damage. And it plays a 2-mana 3/2 Sorcerer's Apprentice, I think.
Yeah.
That reduces the cost of spells by 1. So you can dump your hand much faster and increase the tempo of the game.
The thing is, with that Tempo Mage, I don't know how to explain this, but basically, if you don't kill your opponent within that time, like, you lose more times than not. Like, there's a certain time frame that Tempo Mage has before it just doesn't win. Because, like, if your opponent's healing themselves and you don't burn them out in time and they're controlling your minions that they're laying down, they're matching your tempo, with your Aloneth that you laid down, you will most likely mill yourself and kill yourself.
Okay, so similar to how I was talking about Delver and Miracles, there's a critical mass point that you have to hit, and if you don't hit it, you're gonna basically get grinded out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's more extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you basically have to have your opponent dead within a fairly short time frame, or else you guaranteed will lose the game.
Yeah.
I play a Control Warlock deck, and frequently will beat my opponent in fatigue. My opponent will have fatigued because they played Eleneth and are drawing through their deck, but cannot close the game because I have enough healing to survive their direct damage, and because they play such a short curve of creatures, they can't... They play a very high tempo early game, but as soon as they lose that tempo, they have to kill you with their spells. And if they can't, they will lose.
And it should be noted that Hearthstone has a 30-card deck, and once you hit fatigue, every card you draw deals 1 plus X. X is the number of fatigue you have, or fatigue cards you have drawn.
Right. So the first card you draw on fatigue, you take 1. The second card, you take 2. The third card, you take 3.
And Aloneth is not optional. It is you draw 3.
Yes.
At the end of your turn.
So it is a very risky card, but also very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to another deck in Hearthstone, there's currently a deck in Wild, which is Hearthstone's Eternal format. You can use any card that's ever been made in Wild. There's a very, very, very powerful Druid deck that runs it's basically a control combo deck where they control the board state for the early turns, playing a very low tempo game, and then they usually play Juicy Psych Melon, which is a 4-mana to draw a 7, 8, 9, 10 cost card.
Mm-hmm. It's
draw
one
of each from your deck, and they basically combo out with their 7, 8, 9, and 10 cost card. And they are, once they ramp up enough, they will win the game.
Mm-hmm.
It is very hard to interact with, and a both slow but fast game plan. Like, they either take forever to get the combo going, or they get it done like that. So it's very hard to evaluate tempo.
Ritual Beast.
Okay, but Ritual Beast... Oh, my God. They just take forever. Isn't that why it got... limited to one Con Hawk, it wasn't because that the deck was too broken. Sorry, going back to Yu-Gi-Oh real quick. Rituals, the deck that Alec talked about previously, basically goes through a whole bunch of loops in a single turn,
Your goal?
dismantling and reassembling different creatures.
The basic idea is you have to search your deck, preferably 4 to 6 times, in order to get everything you need loaded outside of the game for making and breaking your fusions. But because of that, you either turn 1 it, or you turn 4 it, which in Yu-Gi-Oh is slow. That's starting to get towards mid-game.
But also, with that particular deck, one turn could go somewhere from...
Unskilled pilot as I was for my first time playing in a tournament, it took 10 minutes to set up my turn 1.
And then he did the same thing the next turn. Because that's what they
But I
do.
got faster.
They do the same thing every turn.
Once people see it, though, you can just say, I'm shortcutting. I'm going to be doing these.
That sounds like the soft band for Horseman deck in Legacy.
Very much.
Where you go through a loop milling your entire deck, and there's a card that shuffles it back in, but you need to hit, I believe, 6 cards in a specific order, and none of them, quote-unquote, affect the board state. So it, by the rules of Magic the Gathering, is slow play, because you can't shortcut it, because you don't know what order your deck is going to be in, you don't know how many times you have to repeat milling your entire deck.
For all you know, it could be
So
100 times, which you're not going to get done.
You can technically play the deck, but you will get game and match losses from playing too slowly.
Recently, as of M19, though, there was a new addition of the deck that got around the slow play. What was it called? Something Crips.
It makes a bat every time.
It makes a
creature
1/1
moves
bat.
I know what you're talking about.
Every time.
And then you play
change the board
Anger,
state.
which gives them all haste. And there are ways around it now, but the deck still hasn't put up any results. So
yeah.
Zulak in Hearthstone, it's an aggro deck that plays high tempo creatures. Do you have any? I don't think you've been playing Hearthstone as much.
I have
lately.
not recently been playing much Hearthstone.
They have a couple marquee cards and combos. First of all is, I don't remember the name of it, but it's the 1-mana 3/2.
That deals 3 damage to yourself?
Yeah.
Yep, that one.
They play a 1-mana 3/2, which is way above stats. That deals 3 damage to themselves. That's the drawback.
The hero, not the creature.
Right. That's the drawback, but you're playing a high tempo. You want to finish the game quickly. And then I believe it's Soul Infusion.
That's the 1 mana give the leftmost minion +2/+2. They play that with a card called Doubling Imp, which is a 3-mana 2/2. When it enters, it makes a copy of itself. So you're basically playing a 4-mana 8/8. Yep, which is very good. They play Soulfire, which is a 1 mana deal 4 damage, but you also discard a card.
The other like high tempo, high variance play, which Lucas knows that I hate this card very much, is Prince Kelissa. It is a 2-mana 2/2, so like average on rate.
Sounds fair. It's a bear.
Legendary minion, so you can only have one of them in your deck.
One in your entire 30-card deck. But when you play it, if you have no other 2-cost cards in your deck, every minion in your deck gets +1/+1, including the ones that make a copy of itself.
What the fuck?
For the rest of the game.
Right, so it's basically a 2-mana, like, 20/20.
Mistcaller.
So,
Mistcaller?
Mistcaller is a 6 mana 4/4 in Shaman that when you play it, it's
a
battle
bad
cry.
card.
So
Because it comes down way too late.
basically, you sacrifice the efficiency of your curve to make sure that your mid and late game are going to be better.
Basically, Hearthstone also has what are called hero powers, which are 2-mana abilities that each different class has a unique one.
They're usually the lowest tempo you can do, though.
For the most part, the priest one can be high tempo. It can add 2 stats by healing a minion. It can. The mage can kill an opponent's minion and deal 1 damage to any target. The paladin can make a 1/1 for 2 mana. pretty okay.
Dude Paladin.
Rogue can make a 1/2 weapon, basically mage hero power, but you hit things with your face.
Warlock draws a card.
Warlock is
life.
pay 2 mana, 2 life, draw a card. So you're not even sacrificing that much if you don't have a turn 2 play. Or you just play 2 1-drops on turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just coin out a 3-drop. You got turn 1 Soul Infusion, turn 2 Doubling Imp.
I think that's
make 2 4.
That's another thing where Magic Hearthstone different. Just because you've got guaranteed resources, your curves can be a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
That was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Like, high tempo decks in Hearthstone are able to run higher mana cards, like more expensive cards, because they know that they can get to that point in the game. Whereas in Magic, a lot of like aggro deck curves will top out at like 4 because they can only guarantee getting up to 4 late in the game because they play so very few lands.
We'll go back to Delver. Delver has high stuff on the curve, but usually
Delver plays like 16 lands.
They have a mechanic that will lower the cost. So most times they're virtually 2 mana. Sometimes if games go the way that they do, you actually are playing 5-6 mana for a creature that sometimes will immediately affect card advantage. Like Bedlam Reveler will, if you do it in a way that is most advantageous, you basically get to draw 3 for free because you empty your hand before you play it. Or you have Cryptic Serpent, which is just a very good body. And you don't have to worry about putting in extra work to get it to where it needs to be to help. You know it.
The quintessential Magic the Gathering tempo deck, which we failed to talk about really, is Rug Delver, which is doing everything in its power to keep your opponent off of resources.
It's all about the Goyf.
And
Yeah, it's not.
It's all about the
Wasteland.
Delver. It's all
Wasteland
about the
Stifle.
Delver. Yeah, Wasteland Stifle. Keep your opponent off lands.
The Wasteland podcast was a fantastic thing to hear.
Yes, that's a good podcast. We can put it in the show notes.
Hey.
In the description. But its curve tops out at 3. The most expensive card in the deck is 3 mana. It plays 16 lands, and like you don't frequently want to hit 3. I think you play 2 3-drops, maybe 3 if you're feeling extra spicy. But yeah, in Hearthstone you can play an 8-drop in your aggro deck.
Which people do. Ragnaros in Wild. They used to, anyways, before it moved to Wild. Ragnaros
I think Wild is a bit fast.
Wild is fast.
If you're trying to be an aggro deck in Wild, I think you have to be faster than Rag.
Yeah, I mean previously before Rag rotated into Wild, every deck ran Ragnaros.
You want to talk about one of the highest tempo plays in Hearthstone?
Which one?
Turn 3 coin
Barnes
into
Yasharaj.
Barnes is a 4-mana 3/4. Like, okay body in Hearthstone that's decent. It's not like fantastic.
I heard you say
but it copies. It gives you a 1/1 copy of a creature in your deck.
A random creature in your deck. Seems
so
balanced, right?
You play it with one other creature in your deck, which is a 10 mana 10/10 that at the end of your turn pulls a minion from your deck onto the battlefield.
So it pulls the 10.
Yeah. You play a 4 mana 14/15 basically.
On turn 3.
Yep.
Very balanced.
But it has the downside, if you draw the 10 mana 10/10, you're drawing a dead card that you're never going to play.
It means your other creature is just a 3-drop.
Mediocre at best.
It was very much played in Spell Hunter, and it was really
which is
funny.
One of my favorite decks ever.
It's really fun because there's a card called Tracking, which is a 1 mana. Look at the top 3 cards, pick 1.
The other 2 disappear.
The other 2 disappear forever, and it's really funny when your opponent. I actually watched Ben a decent amount, and he'd play this card, and almost every time I was watching, he'd play a Tracking, and then there'd be Barnes and Yashraj.
Okay, that would happen, but that's not too bad. A lot of the times, I would play Tracking,
choose Barnes and then draw Yashiraj the next turn.
Choose Barnes, draw Yashiraj. Or if you play tracking before turn 3 or 4 when you would play your Barnes, you can hit Yashiraj and then Barnes doesn't do anything. Which is why you frequently don't play tracking if you have Barnes in your hand.
Just a quick chime in real quick before we get too far. We are at the 45-minute mark, so...
This is going to be a long one.
Yeah.
You guys know it is when I'm on. Like, I talk a lot.
2 people, when we're efficient, manages 25 minutes. Third person, we're back to the hour all over again.
I mean, like, we're
That's how
having
it
a
goes.
discussion as well as, like,
Yeah.
trying to get information across.
More cooks.
We are all over the place going back to Magic, then to Hearthstone, then to Yu-Gi-Oh, then to Yu-Gi-Oh, then
It's
to...
like the plan dynamic. Because we have to loop back. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to not loop back when it's
I mean,
about
we go
reference.
for full circle, boys. But
I can only draw ovals.
Lucas, do you want to tell them about your favorite Hearthstone card ever?
Wait, which one?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I'm in
God, I
charge.
fucking hate that
Wrote
card.
it down.
Okay. I must repress that in the 45 minutes we've been talking since I read that. So there is a card that was released. I don't even remember what it said. I don't even care. In Hearthstone, it's a 1-mana 1/1 with charge. Not too bad. Like, it's good. It's good. It's a legendary. You know, dropping a 1-mana 1/1.
Basically, haste. It can attack on the turn that you play it.
Yeah,
figured.
there's a similar card that's a beast that does the same thing, 1-mana 1/1. What made this one different is that it's a pirate, and
Yar!
the main difference is that when you play a pirate, it summons this minion from your deck, which is extremely broken. You wouldn't think.
High tempo play. You are getting an extra +1/+1 stat, much like Heliseth.
Much like Causal. So the decks that ran it ran a lot of pirates,
I would
and
hope
you
so.
play a 1-mana pirate because there's a lot of 1-mana pirates. You have your 1/2 pirate and you have your 1/1 pirate with charge. Very high tempo.
That-
You smack in.
Lots of early game stats.
That's how a lot of these decks come down. You find something that's a good value play that synergizes, you build around that, and find the best value cards in that.
Oh, it gets better.
Oh, tell
So in Hearthstone, there's a 3-mana card that was played in this deck. All pirates, right? It's pirate theme. All
South Sea
pirates.
Captain.
South Sea Captain. For those of you who play Magic, it's a pirate lord. For those of you who don't play Magic,
It's a pirate that gives all your pirates +1/+1, other than itself.
and it is itself a pirate. So on turn 3, if you have literally nothing on the board, you are playing your 3/3, because it's a 3/3 by the way. It's a 3-mana 3/3, which
That's
is not
good
bad
lord.
stats.
Good stats.
That's a good lord.
It doesn't buff itself, by the way. That should be
Yeah.
noted.
I did say that.
Yeah.
It's others,
But
but that's a good lord.
If you're running Patches gets put on the deck as a 1/1. Oh, it's a 2/2 with
I'm
charge.
in charge.
That is a 5-mana 3/3. Or sorry, 5-mana 3 cost.
3-mana 5/5.
Yeah, that.
yeah.
Yep.
I'm just so triggered by Patches, dude.
You're not even drinking alcohol in your bed.
Dude,
I got into Hearthstone basically as this was nerfed, but holy god that is ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
so
People would put Patches and Pirates in their deck even if it like wasn't
because
the
if,
theme of the
to
deck.
deal with Patches.
Because if you lucked into it, you had a better play than they did.
there was a stat that was the #1 play in Hearthstone for that thing, and if it wasn't Patches, or it was Patches, and then the #1 turn 2 play was like Firebolt Patches. It's just like, why? It was so efficient at what it did, and it was so fast, and it was just annoying. You were often dead on turn 4, no matter what deck you were playing. Even if you removed their threats every single turn, you're wasting. So back to the tempo. We're bringing tempo. Removal is matching tempo, but not gaining tempo.
Yes.
In most cases, if we go to Rogue, there's Sap, which is a 2-mana. It's low cost. It's not
Unsummon in Magic.
yeah, it's unsummoned. So basically, it bounces. You don't kill the minion, but it gives you enough mana to hopefully do something else. Compared to, you go to like Firebolt back in Mage, Fireball, not Firebolt. Firebolt is the hero power. Fireball is the 4 mana, deal 6 to any target. You kill a creature with that. It's probably all you're doing with your turn, unless it's quite late in the game.
You go for a 1-for-1 that.
Exactly.
That gives you a chance
and you are
of-
not advancing your board state. You are taking away from their board state, but you're not winning the game that way, per se.
No, you're just adding more time.
Removal is typically a tempo neutral play, unless you are pushing damage as a result of their minion not being there.
Such as, what's the mage secret? I forgot what it's called.
Explosive runes?
Explosive runes. So, Explosive runes is a mage secret, so 3 mana. Doesn't do anything the turn you play it.
Your opponent doesn't know what the secret is as you play it, hence the name secret. There are like 5 or 6 different mage secrets. All of them do different things, such as counter spell, counter the next spell your opponent plays. Explosive runes deal 6 damage to the next creature your opponent plays, and any extra damage hits your opponent's face. So usually it kills the minion and does a couple damage to your opponent, which is tempo positive because it also does damage to the face.
Exactly.
But it can also be tempo negative if your opponent plays a minion bigger than 6 toughness.
Or doesn't play a minion, because they're playing just
if they
burn.
don't ever play a minion yet.
Yeah. Or they... So there's a difference between playing a minion and summoning a minion in Hearthstone. So if you play a minion from your hand, that's the only time the secret will trigger. If they get a minion such as recruit a minion, recruit is...
Pull a minion from your deck at random.
Yeah, so
that does not trigger.
basically like a green sun. You play a spell to pull a card from the deck directly on.
Right.
It's not playing that, it's playing the spell that got it there.
And in Hearthstone, there are no enter the battlefield triggers. It's battle cry, which is if you play it from your hand.
Yeah.
So if you pull a minion from your deck, you don't get any... Like, if you pull Keloseth from your deck, it won't buff up all the minions in your deck.
Fair enough.
Do we want to move on to League of Legends?
League of Legends.
My friends.
I play that
I'll
game.
get like 1 point in, and then I'll phase out again, like good old Teferi. In
You gotta come back at some point.
that is your opinion. I will continue to phase out,
Hey, he came...
and then return, and then phase out.
He came back in Dominaria.
Well, good for him. I don't know if I want to come back.
Baby, come back.
League of Legends
You can
is
blame it.
Except to play
not a card
Sona.
game, by the way.
Yeah, it's a video game. Fucking nerds. Sorry, is this a family-friendly podcast?
I don't think
You're
that's-
on it.
Ah, fuck.
Thanks. Thanks.
Oh, god damn it, I spiked it. You spiked it.
Oh yeah, I laugh quite loudly.
I laugh. Oh, you're gonna do
Yay!
you spiked it.
Alright, now that we're
Enough
better.
spiking. Alex spiked his drink.
With alcohol.
What are you talking
His
about?
shot of alcohol.
My
was
only
spiked
drinks have been alcohol.
with alcohol.
Spiked.
Okay,
It's been
but in League of
continuous
Legends, I think there's a couple different like sources of tempo. I think the main one is like how much stats you get for your gold,
Mm-hmm.
your gold efficiency, and there are times in which you either want to make a high tempo play of buying a less expensive item because you can't afford a more expensive item to get those stats immediately because you need them now, saving up for the more expensive item, and I have another point to come back to.
I think the best way of imagining it is like a set of scales when it comes to something like League, because League, you end up rolling, so you'll eke out incremental value, so you're slowly tipping the scale, so that way you can continue to just incrementally and exponentially get that value, so that way the scales are completely in your favor. The only problem is tempo changes fast in that game, just because of the same mechanics. So you have tempo where you're just building, you're either consistently building, or you get explosive, like, okay, I was holding them back at that one tower. I died. I have this item that I've been saving up for. I instantly steamroll them. but then by the same metric, they get to a point where you thought you could control them, they get a good item as well, it goes back to pushing towards center or potentially worse. So it's a weird kind of balance. It's not like card games where it's, you know what's going to happen. It's a one-to-one, like, I'm killing this thing in order to do this. Mm-hmm. It's, they did something, things have changed instantly. Potentially, I should say, when it comes to the late game at least.
See, League of Legends is... I don't completely understand tempo in any of the topics we discussed. I think I have a fairly good grasp on it, but I did research a bit for this episode. Where League of Legends, I don't have the same understanding as I do Magic the Gathering specifically. But, so I'm figuring some of this stuff out as we talk.
Alright, I'm gonna pitch a story here.
Okay.
So, I play in the bottom lane. I don't know.
He plays AD carry.
I play AD carry. I don't
He's
think...
a whiny little bitch.
Hell yeah. No, I'm a fill main. Anyway.
Word. Now you're AD carry, man.
This is practicing.
Thanks, Clash Team.
Thanks, Clash Team. Thanks, Rito, for Clash. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey.
In client tournaments. Woo.
That never happened. Anyways, so I'm not going to go into details of all the rules and everything. Just like find a guide or something, put that in the notes for League.
That's on you. You're the one who uploads.
Yeah, I know. I said
He's
I will.
making the note
I'm
now,
making the
so when he listens back to this podcast, which he very much definitely does.
I did last time. I usually do.
Okay.
But I was making the notes so the listeners know, like, oh, what the fuck is League of Legends? And they scroll down and click, oh.
Have they never seen an ad on YouTube? There's a lot of them.
There is.
Every time someone makes
You
a
could
very
link
good...
the video, what the fuck is League of Legends?
Oh, that's true, I could.
Isn't that Total Biscuit?
Is it total? I don't know. Anyways, in the bot lane, ADC. So, let's say I'm, just farming back and forth. We do some trading, and say I'm playing against a Thresh. I get hooked, and I die. I have 1,200 gold. I'll say doesn't really matter which ADC I'm. It matters. It does matter. It definitely does, but for this instance, we'll say it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have the same farm, me and the enemy ADC, but they have a kill and I do not. They push out the wave, which equates the same farm. I'm going to miss a wave, I'm going to miss experience. At this point, we'll say I have 1,200 gold, and I'm going to assume they have about 1,500, maybe more. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, what do I need? I'm back at base. I'm going to build an item. Do I build attack speed? Do I build damage? Do I save? Because the main item purchase for most ADCs is what's called the BF Sword.
That's what you want to get when you back.
On your first back, that is usually what you want. That is your target.
It's a big spike in attack damage.
Yep, it's plus 40 attack damage, builds into good items. That is what you want. Helps farm, helps just trade, helps everything for an AD carry. At this point, there's a lesser item for 875, which is called a pickaxe. Gives a lot less AD. Still builds...
25?
Yeah, 25, but it still builds into things that I need later. But what I'm thinking is, should I save for the BF Sword? My opponent's definitely getting a BF Sword. I'm almost 100% sure my opponent's getting a BF Sword. It comes in tempo at this point because it's like, do I buy potions? Do I not buy anything? Do I buy boots and something else? Do I buy dagger? Do I buy a different set of items that is not going to be optimal as my opponent? It really depends. So if I think I'm going to go back in lane and immediately die again, I don't think I should buy anything.
Oh.
That's my opinion. It's not necessarily correct.
Right.
But if I think...
That is you're faced with a few options. You can take the low tempo play of not buying anything. You're trying to slow the game down so you can catch back up.
Mm-hmm.
You can take the route of trying to match their tempo as much as you can by buying the pickaxe to stay as equal on stats as you can. Or you can go get boots too. You can get Berserker Greaves, which give you move speed and...
It gives you theoretically outplay advantage. I don't know how that plays in their tempo per se.
I think the best thing to say here is you're essentially changing tempo, so how fast the game is going for momentum, how well you'll be able to keep pushing forward at that speed when you're making these kind of decisions in a game that's as dynamic as League. So
yes, yeah.
It's basically, do you stay where you
are? A lot of the tempo in League of Legends is based on momentum. Like, the more League of Legends has a lot to do with momentum. You try to gain an advantage and then push that advantage as much as you can. So as soon as you have an advantage, you try and push the tempo as much as you can.
A good example of that is Baron.
I want to go. Well, Baron's later.
Later,
Let's start in the early. Okay, so you died in lane, you got your item, and then you went back to lane, or you got your kill and you went back to lane. Around now is about when your jungler is looking to gank, looking at objectives on the map such as Dragon. All of those are tempo plays. Like, they're trying to keep your team in the game as much as the opponent's jungler is, and depending on the clear speeds of the jungle, their individual tempos will be different.
Yep.
Somebody like Lee Sin has a very high tempo. They are very good in the early game, but fall off quite quickly. Like, the longer the game goes on, the more their win rate just spikes. Versus someone like Graves, who has a fairly consistent tempo, good early game, good mid game, pretty good late game, not as good because he's low range for being an AD carry. But so you can either try and get the most tempo by ganking, getting a kill, and then hopefully getting a turret off that. So you get global gold for the team, you get that lane way ahead so that they can push their tempo. You can get the dragon, which is a slower paced tempo, because you're getting a minimal advantage that snowballs as the game goes on. Or you can just keep farming, which increases your individual tempo, not as much as ganking, but more than dragon.
Yes. Well, it increases it more if it's a failed gank. Because you're actively...
If it is a failed gank, yes. Unless you take minions from the lane. Which,
taxing.
Like, is tempo neutral for the team, tempo positive for you, and tempo negative for the lane that you're in. But you can also up the tempo of the lane by it being a damage gank, where you just get damage off on the enemy lane, right?
Yep.
And moving on to the late game, you get to the point where you have to, if you win a team fight, you have to decide between taking Baron or taking an inhibitor a lot of the time. I don't, like, personally, I don't know which one is higher or lower tempo.
I
think inhibitor is
higher tempo because it's an immediate effect. You start sawing super
higher
minions.
Tempo, lower momentum.
I'd agree with that. Because Baron, you actually have to do things with your Baron. So when you kill Baron Nashor, you have to do things with your Baron bot. Because you may have won the fight on a fluke.
Yeah,
say you get a pick or something, and because they're just way out of sync. In a 5v5 team fight, say your team loses, but you still got Baron because you got the pick.
Right.
If you take the inhib first, you're springing your tempo because you're getting those super minions out there. That's actively affecting the map. Meanwhile, if you get Baron, you come back and you start pushing, there's most likely going to be another team fight.
You have a lot more momentum.
Yeah, so basically...
Because you get a pile of stats, and
exactly,
your minions are much easier to... They have a much easier time breaking down the turrets.
But you still have to do something with it.
Right.
So if we jump back before you get Baron, there's a team fight and you finish off Baron and there's one person alive. It's a much less beneficial compared to usually for one person, or I'd rather have an inhib than one person with Baron, especially if that one person's like a support or something.
Yeah,
because it also depends who it's on.
Yeah, let's say I'm Sona, and I've been building pure support, and I managed to stay alive purely by the fact that I was trying to heal everyone, and I healed enough to not die. and I'm the only one who's got that support now. The only one who's got that bonus. It's not gonna do shit for the team.
It's still beneficial for the team. The Sono in that instance will still get bonus stats. You still buff your minions, but if you're losing the 5v5 team fights, that one stat on that one person and the minions probably won't make a difference, and you can't split. Splitting is not necessarily always the optimal way to go, but it is a very effective thing in League of Legends, and it's a lot more effective with Baron buff.
Yeah.
And it's very much weird at that point, but I do think that the more tempo play is the inhibitor.
And another point as inhibitor being more of a tempo play, your lane automatically pushes, so you usually losing the farm that you would be getting from that lane because the minions are killing your minions are killing the enemy minions. You're not getting that gold for it. But it's putting pressure on the opponent. So you're losing the long game gold and providing, quote unquote, providing that to your opponent. Because they have to kill. The minions will be on their side more often, and they will have more of a chance to farm them unless they have to attend to you being in another lane, as you should be. Pressuring another turret, another inhib, or Baron.
And it lets you set up vision around the map. So it lets you clear out their jungle of any wards. You can set up picks in their jungle. You can have your entire team sit in a bush and kill the first person who comes in there. Stuff like that. So that's my opinion on it anyways.
One tempo thing that I wanted to bring up is, for League of Legends, is the, not health potions, but the tank potion, the AD potion, and the sorcery potion, elixirs. A lot of people don't buy them until they're full build, but a lot something that I think, I'm not very good at League of Legends, but something that I think people should do more often is, before a big team fight, invest the 500 gold in those large boost of stats for a short period of time. They're a very high tempo play because you're trying to make use of a large burst of stats in a short period of time so that you can push your advantage.
Yeah, very much so. I was actually watching a game today, Worlds is going on, and I was watching one of the supports, Zazel for Cloud9. He had one item completed and just had a whole bunch of parts and stuff, but he had an elixir of iron that he bought right before a team fight, and they smashed the team fight.
Yeah. I even think that pro players don't do it enough.
Yeah. Because
it's not something that people do or think of. But it has been pointed out in the past that this is probably a good thing. Nobody does it, so nobody else does it.
Yeah, you can get it at level 9, I believe.
Yeah, because you used to be able to buy them whenever you wanted. The red one used to give you immediate maximum health and a bunch of AD. So people would buy it level 1, pop it in the middle of a fight, after they baited their opponent as Riven, and you just get 240 health and 25 AD, level 1.
Yeah,
so you just stomp your opponent in a fight. So top lane just became a degenerate, everybody buys that and 3 health potions.
So basically,
and
who manages it better after they pop it, and then can they keep it going?
Who wins the level 1 brawl? And if you don't, you spent 500 gold for basically nothing.
Hey,
that sounds fucking miserable.
Riven's really good at that.
It was a fun time. I played Riven during that time. I had fun.
Riven's good.
I also played Olaf during that time. That was fun.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, yeah. Those axes hurt.
Yeah, they have really high base damage.
Yeah. And you used to be able to throw them directly at your feet.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now there's a minimum range of casting.
I remember when cast top was a thing, when you take smite top, smite gromp, because the jungle camps used to give the buffs, and it'd be poison on any ability that you hit. So Cassiopeia, if your target is poison, and it's weird that they didn't distinguish the poisons.
I mean, it's kind of like a cool Easter egg.
Not
Easter egg, but Cassiopeia, Proxoff, Teemo poison.
Yeah. Team will poison Twitch. So any poison in the game, cast.
I didn't know the Twitch poison.
I'm pretty sure it's any poison.
I wouldn't be surprised. I just didn't know that.
It's just good affinity.
But anyways, her E does damage. It's on a very short cooldown, and if the target is poisoned, you heal off of it. So, since you smite drop, you don't actually kill it. Usually, you just smite as you're walking. Slithering to lane. And then once you eat your opponent, once it does the damage. You don't get the heal because they're not poisoned yet. But once you hit them with that E, they're poisoned, and every time after, it keeps applying. Every time you hit them with your E, you get healed because they're poisoned, and then it reapplies the poison from Gromp. And it was a very snowbally thing, and it was... I would never think of that.
Yeah.
But it was just like, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's degenerate.
And then they changed the jungle because of that. Well, probably not just because of that, but...
I'm sad I wasn't playing.
There was some things wrong with that jungle. It was... I think it was really cool that they had different buffs that you got for smiting things.
Dude, I miss Wolf Smite.
I miss
so good.
Purple Smite. AoE Smite.
Oh.
AoE Smite that healed you, like, based on the damage it did.
Seems busted.
Oh, dude, Shyvana with that and Feral Flare. Oh, so
What
good.
about Regal's Lantern?
Wriggles was cool back in the day. For those who don't know, it was an item that would give... It basically was an activatable item that would give you a word wherever you activate it. And there was a percentage chance of whenever you attack a minion, a creature, not a player, it could deal like 350 bonus magic damage. And Shyvana's Q is... it basically combines 2 auto attacks into one. So it could proc this twice, basically dealing like 800 or 900 damage to a minion in one, like, single action.
And Shyvana is already a power farmer. And then...
Yeah. Shyvana is... A lot of her power comes from being able to clear and kill minions quite quickly.
So, high tempo for her, not her team, usually. Till 6. Well, that's not true. Dragons. She was very good at securing dragons.
Which used to give gold for the team, which was very, very high tempo.
Yep.
Too high of tempo. So they scaled it back to being like, based on the number of dragons you've taken, you got different abilities. And now
It gets 25 gold for whoever kills the dragon.
that and like a special buff based on the kind of dragon it is.
Yeah.
Short aside. Hi, Hydroxide. Okay.
Please tell me you have that written in. Please, for the love of God, tell me
It's not
that's
written in, but I did tell Hannah that I had a special pun for this podcast. And that was the pun, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
Oh, I'm also here.
No, you're not.
I'm gonna be relegated to looking at a beach again.
Do we want to go through some of the champions? And I'll name off some champions. This will be pretty easy. But you tell me, how about you guess at whether they're high or low tempo?
Okay, so I guess he
and
verifies.
then you verify,
Okay,
and
sure,
I'll
sure,
let
sure.
you know what I was thinking.
Okay.
Lee Sin.
High tempo.
Agree.
I mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
You passed.
Cassidon the Assassin.
I guess Cassidon.
It's not his actual title, by the way.
Isn't it like Harbinger or something?
Probably.
I'm assuming high tempo?
Low tempo.
Low tempo. Very weak early game, but when you hit 6, your tempo picks up a bit, but it doesn't really pick up until 16.
Yeah.
You need 2 or 3 items and rank 3 ultimate, basically.
It uses so much mana, dude.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna pull up.
Are you gonna pull up?
I'm just gonna pull up pictures of each of the champions and have that to see if that helps me because I might recognize better.
Pantheon.
He always wanted to be a baker.
And they finally gave him a skin.
They did. They gave him a baker skin. So cool.
Yeah.
He chose baguettes.
Baguettes du fromage. Yes, I know that quote was wrong. Don't quote me on it.
Ben 2018.
Oh. Low tempo?
High tempo.
High tempo. Very early game champion.
He is a lane bully. And
Yeah.
he's me. Oh my god. He is. Okay. Playing against Pantheon, especially. So,
Cool.
when they reworked runes this past time, and Aerie was super, super strong coming out of the gates. And Pantheon's main poke is his Q. And it does a decent amount of damage. And I believe it's.
crits.
And it does crit. And then Aerie is for single target things, which also applied to his on hit, and it just did so much damage, and it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous, and it hurt my feelings. He was stomping.
Next up is Joven the Fourth.
I don't think I've ever played against him or with him. I can't remember a game.
But then again, there's a lot of champions. Low tempo?
I'd say he's like mid.
He's high tempo.
Is he?
I looked up his win rate over time. He has a very high win rate
Oh,
before
that's
like 20, but it drops off really hard. Like he's decent up until about 30 minutes, and then like a lot of the time you have to build damage on him,
Yeah.
and so like once he stops being able to one-shot people, which happens fairly frequently, like fairly early,
Mm-hmm.
he just kind of falls off and you don't do a whole
That's
lot.
why you just go with an Anivia. You leave the wall up.
Yeah.
Or just be a bird.
Kratos.
That sounds
He's a spooky ghost.
Screamy ghosty boy.
Low tempo?
I'd agree.
Very low tempo. He can be very high tempo level 1.
Yeah.
But
This is cute.
overall is low tempo.
Machine gun Q.
Kugmu. Kog'Maw.
Oh, high tempo?
Low
Oh, no.
tempo.
Low tempo.
Low
Very
tempo.
low
That's
tempo.
right. He
He's-
spirals out.
Is what's known as a hyper carry. Like, the longer the game goes, the very much better he becomes.
Because he has a stacks ability, if I remember correctly.
He has a percentage maximum health
Yes.
ability per auto attack. Next up is Draven.
Oh, fuck Draven.
I agree.
Out of all the things I've gotten from the few times I've played League, fuck Draven.
He's real fun to play, by the way.
Fuck off.
Not fun to play against.
God help me.
Unless you get ahead.
That's true. Once you
Once you're ahead, he's
High
just
tempo.
dead. High tempo.
very high tempo. Oh, it
he's-
depends.
He can smack the shit out of you early game.
He can outplay.
He can be insane in the late game because he has an attack damage steroid on his
Yeah.
Q, but you have to be like top of the top in terms of mechanics.
Well, Tyler won.
Basically.
Well, Tyler won to come. Well, Tyler.
And the last champion that I have today is Elise, the Spider Bitch.
Spider bitch. Spider bitch.
I'm trying to remember her. I'm gonna say low.
High tempo.
High tempo.
She excels at ganking.
Oh.
One of her
and-
first items is Moby boots. Often.
And she typically has to build a lot of damage to be relevant, but she used to be very good in all aspects of the game, and that was too good, as you can imagine. So she had to be nerfed, and her late game lost a lot of its power.
They recently buffed her a little bit.
Yeah,
Not much.
it-
Not much at all.
It's more like a relevancy buff, like, hey, try her out,
This
see
is
how
a-
she is
This
now.
is a champion. She's
But,
still bad, but she's a champion.
For our last topic today, which is a surprise topic for you two,
It's not fair.
speaking of spider bitches, I heard both of you saw Venom recently.
Oh, I fucking
How
love it.
was Venom? I have not seen it. No spoilers.
Okay,
It was good.
so here's the thing. So both me and my brother went into that expecting it to be very serious, very dark, just because it's Sony. They're not in the same kind of Marvel universe, even though they are. So we thought it was going to be very dark. We thought it was going to be somewhere in between, like, Sam Raimi, Spider-Man, where it's like, they want to be serious, but they're not pulling it off, or they're going to be Amazing Spider-Man 1, where it's like they want to be goofy, but they're coming out very serious when they need to be. And it was closer to the Amazing Spider-Man, at least I want to say so. They balanced comedy and seriousness very well. The threats felt real. It felt like there was a sense of urgency. It felt like there was an actual drive to the characters, but they balanced that out. Venom, I thought he was good. I didn't expect him to honestly speak all that much.
Oh, yeah.
But he speaks.
Spoilers, he speaks. As Venom
Damn
does.
it.
As Venom does, because he has a mouth.
I'm pretty sure they showed in the trailer when he first reveals himself to Eddie, but he plays off as a great foil. I did not expect that.
It is quite fantastic.
I thought he was going to be a flat character. He was very dynamic. He was very great to, like, anytime he spoke, just added something to the scene. It was fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
he helped to make that movie.
He's really, and like when I first looked at the reviews and it was like okay reviews, I was like, man, why is this? And most of the reviews are just because people were they're like they could have done more. It wasn't it's a bad movie. It's like they could have done more. Yeah, they wanted more. But I still think
you can't shove more into that. That was
they wanted a different plot essentially because you could. Based on I don't know how much you know about Venom himself.
Yeah, there's a lot to the comics.
There's a lot more that you could have went into. I still think it's fantastic.
I think they did the right approach. They scooped just enough from the comic originals to make it where it tied into the universe. The end game was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the progression of the movie was fantastic. It's Marvel Universe. You know, there's going to be an after credit. The after credit.
It was good.
They didn't play it off like a joke. Like, this was one of Sony's first, like, hey, we want to expand our universe, like, and solidly did it. They pulled it off. I think they did it where you wouldn't think, oh, Sony versus Marvel Studios. You think, this is the Marvel canon universe. This is fantastic. I love this.
I definitely am excited for a second one.
Same.
So on the classic 5 to 18 scale, what would you give it, Alec?
I'd give it like a 15 or 16. It's solid. There's probably more that they could have done just for the sake of maybe pacing. Pacing was a little bit weird in that movie, but it was solid all around. Very enjoyable, balanced, serious when it needed to be, funny when it had to be.
And what about you, Lucas?
I'll give it a 16. What was that?
On the 5 to 18 scale.
I'll give it a 16.
Classic.
I really enjoyed it.
I'd be willing to watch that like 2 or 3 times in a row.
I'd be willing to pay money to see it again.
Hey,
that says anything.
Hey, friends.
Hey, friends.
I know somebody who hasn't seen it yet who wouldn't mind seeing
Is it Hannah?
Yeah, it's Hannah.
Yeah, I thought so.
I'm down. I'm down for that as well. That is a fantastic...
He didn't ask you.
I mean, I didn't ask anybody. I just said that I know somebody who wants to see it. Hannah. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
How's it going? I'm still that other guy.
No one knows who you are.
I'm gonna look up at a beach.
Anyways, I think that's all we have. No more surprise topics, boys.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
We'll wrap it up at the 123 mark. Good talk, boys.
That's it?
Yeah,
we got another 7 minutes in us, don't we?
We got to 145 the first time, didn't we?
God damn us.
Right? That was our first podcast?
I mean, this is my first podcast.
That's true. Well, you cameoed last week.
I mean, I cameoed, but that's not like being on a podcast.
That's
if only we
true.
talked about comic. If only I clicked record sooner.
Oh my god. Small tangent before we go. Last week, we talked about comics for we were like, yeah, let's do a podcast. It was like an hour and a half.
And then Ben knock.
Yeah, they invited me to be on the podcast, and I'm like, nah, I gotta go to bed. And then we spent like 2 hours talking about comics.
I was like, well, we gotta record the podcast now.
Every time I debate it, should I click it? Is this going to be cold open?
A few times I mentioned that like we should have had the mic on to record this entire interesting conversation for a podcast.
And then it led to Paul
eventually
passing
he like turned it on and we had a cold open and you know how that went.
Yeah.
Probably if you listened to the last episode.
Paul laughing like fuck.
Anyways, that's going to do it for this week. That is Casual Experts. I'm Lucas.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Alec. Thanks for listening.
And we were your casual experts.
Let's go with that. Not that. Thanks for listening.